Welcome back, my lovely, to the Leader Within podcast. I'm Sue-Ann Higgins. In our last episode, we explored how AI isn't replacing you, it's refocusing you, and how it can help you escape the try-harder traps of leadership that are keeping so many women stuck in the cycles of overworking, overthinking, and overwhelm. Today, we're going to go deeper into one of those try harder traps, the perfectionism trap. And I want to challenge a belief that might be at the very core of your own leadership approach. If you've been with me since episode 1, you know that we've been building something together. We've mapped out your inner world, we've identified your try harder traps, and started to reconstruct your thoughts. Today's episode is crucial because it addresses the trap that prevents so many women from ever stepping into their full leadership potential. I constantly hear women say, if only I just prepared more thoroughly, work longer hours and cover every spot possible angle, then finally I might get recognised for my leadership. And I understand why you believe this. Society has taught us that effort equals results, that the person who stays the latest and arrives the earliest must be the most dedicated, that preparation is the ultimate insurance policy against failure. This essentially is the perfectionism trap. I explored this in episode 5. One of the comfort zone traps that keep women stuck where they should be moving forward. But here's the reality check. Have you ever seen someone who's incredibly prepared but completely overlooked in a meeting? Or someone who's worked 80 hours a week perfecting every detail but still passed over for promotion? That possibly may have even been you. Because here's what's actually happening. While you're exhausting yourself trying to achieve perfect preparation, the other leaders are using clarity as their competitive advantage. They're not more prepared, they're more focused. They're not working harder, they're thinking clearer. AI can be the tool that helps you escape the perfectionism trap altogether. Think about it. How much of your perfectionism is actually just cognitive overwhelm? You're spending 3 hours perfecting an email because you're trying to anticipate every possible reaction. You're over researching for presentations because you're afraid that you have to have the perfect answer to any question. But what if AI could handle the initial cognitive load, the research, the first drafts, the scenario planning, so that your brain has the space for strategic insights that actually sets you apart? The truth? Your leadership edge doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from asking the right question. It doesn't come from handling every single little detail. It comes from seeing the patterns that others miss. And that kind of strategic thinking, it only emerges when your brain isn't cluttered with perfectionist busy work. If you keep believing that more effort is the answer, you'll burn out while others rise. You'll be so busy perfecting the details that you'll miss developing the strategic clarity that makes you irreplaceable. Let me tell you about a pattern I see all the time working with leaders. Let's call this composite leader Maria. As you know, I like to protect the identity of my coaching clients. But Maria does represent many different women I've coached. Maria is a finance manager, the kind of leader who is completely exhausted by her own standards. She's caught in what I call the perfectionism trap. It's a comfort zone trap that keeps you stuck. Every financial report has to be flawless. Every presentation meticulously researched. Every email crafted and recrafted until it's perfect. She spends 12 to 15 hours preparing for monthly board presentations. Not because the content is complex, but because she's trying to anticipate every possible question, preparing backup slides for scenarios that may never happen, and polishing every chart until it's magazine ready. Sound familiar? Remember the neuroscience we uncovered in episode 6? Maria's brain is constantly in a state of threat detection. Her amygdala is scanning for every threat of imperfection, which means her prefrontal cortex isn't getting the neurochemicals it needs for clear strategic thinking. Despite her preparation, Maria feels invisible in those board meetings. She's so focused on delivering perfection that she's not contributing her strategic insights. She's presenting data, not leading vision. This is the pattern I see over and over. Amazing women leaders who think value comes from perfect preparation when actually their value comes from strategic thinking. When I work with leaders like Maria, I ask them questions that often stops them in their tracks. What is the goal? What if the goal isn't perfect presentation? What if it's strategic contribution? That's when we can explore how AI can be a tool for escaping the perfectionism trap. Instead of spending hours creating charts from scratch, leaders like Maria start using AI to generate the initial visualizations. Then she can focus her energy on the story the data is telling instead of researching every possible scenario. They use AI to identify the 3 most likely challenges and spend their time developing strategic responses. Here's what happens. Her prep time goes from 15 hours to 5 hours. But the transformation goes more deeper because now, instead of her brain being occupied with the perfectionist details, she can focus on strategic insights. She can see the connections between the different business units. She can identify risks and opportunities that others are simply missing. The breakthrough comes during presentations using this new approach. Instead of perfect slides, leaders like Maria are delivering strategic insights that shape decisions. This is what they are telling me that captures the real transformation. I used to think my value came from having every detail perfect. Now I realise the value comes from the clarity of my strategic thinking. AI doesn't make me less capable. It makes my capabilities more visible. That's the difference between being trapped in the perfectionism try harder trap and being an AI savvy leader who uses technology to amplify strategic impact. Now let's get nerdy again for a moment because understanding the brain science here helps you recognize when you're falling into that perfectionism trap. Time and time again, we talk about your prefrontal cortex needing 80% of your neurochemicals to do its best work, your strategic thinking, pattern recognition, and decision making. But when you're in perfectionist mode, something else is happening. and it's quite destructive. Your brain starts treating imperfection as a threat. Your amygdala starts scanning for all the way things can go wrong. This triggers what researchers call cognitive hypervigilance. Your brain becomes obsessed with finding and fixing every possible flaw. The result? Those precious neurochemicals get diverted from strategic thinking to threat management. You literally can't access your best strategic thinking when you're in perfectionist mode. This is why perfectionist leaders often feel like they're working harder but having less impact. Their brains are so busy managing the threat of that imperfection that they can't access the creative, strategic insights that set them apart as great leaders. Now, here is where AI becomes a game changer for your neurochemicals. When AI handles the initial cognitive load, the research, the first draft, the routine analysis, it frees your prefrontal cortex up to do what it does best. But here's another crucial element. AI outputs aren't perfect, and that's actually helpful for perfectionist leaders. When you start with an AI generated first draft, you're forced to focus on strategic improvement rather than polishing it perfectly. Connecting this back to the five gatekeepers of human behaviour, when you ask AI to handle routine tasks, your sense of autonomy is increased. You're choosing where to focus your cognitive energy. This actually reduces your cortisol and increases the neurochemical conditions for strategic thinking. AI doesn't just save you time. It helps rewire your brain away from that perfectionistic threat. It helps rewire your brain away from perfectionist threat detection towards strategic opportunity recognition. Let's practice some reconstructed thinking around perfectionism and take action. Again, we're using the framework we established in episode 9. The old thought is I need to have every detail perfect before I can share my ideas. Let's examine this. Is this thought helping you become a strategic trailblazer we mapped out in episode 4? Or is it keeping you stuck in that performance plateau? The reconstructed thought, my value comes from strategic insights, not from perfect detail. AI can help me focus on what matters most. Feel the difference? One creates paralysis, the other creates possibility. Here's another one. Old thought. If I use AI to help me prepare, people will think I'm not thorough enough. Reconstructed thought. Using AI strategically demonstrates that I know how to focus my energy on high value thinking. And remember in episode 11, we talked about your living legacy. Your legacy isn't created by how perfectly you prepare, it's created by the clarity and the wisdom you bring to every interaction. When you're an AI savvy leader, you're not cutting corners, you're cutting through the noise and focusing on what matters most. Here's the paradox that many perfectionist leaders discover. When you stop trying to be perfect at everything, you become powerful at things that matter. So let's take action and unpack how to use AI to escape that perfectionism trap. This is what I call the clarity first framework. Step 1 is identify your perfectionist patterns. Where do you spend your time excessively? Where do you spend excessive time on detail that doesn't drive strategic value? Email crafting, polishing presentations, going down the rabbit holes of research. Step 2, use AI for first drafts, not final products. Let AI create your starting point, the initial research, the summary for presentations, or the outline, the draft communication. Then focus your energy on the strategic insights and human elements. Step 3, set good enough boundaries. Use AI outputs to define good enough for routine tasks. Then invest your perfectionist energy into strategic thinking and building relationships, building connection and engagement. Step 4, focus on impact metrics. Instead of measuring preparation time, measure strategic contribution. Did your insights drive decisions? Did your perspective change the conversation? Using the REACH formula we explored in episode 9, this is your reconstruct phase, building new patterns that serve your strategic leadership rather than perfectionist anxiety. The goal isn't to become less excellent. It's to direct your excellence towards what matters. I know some of you thinking, but Suad, my attention to detail is what makes me so valuable. And I'm not suggesting you become sloppy or careless. What I'm suggesting is that you distinguish between perfectionism and excellence. Excellence is about strategic impact. Perfectionism is just managing your anxiety. Excellent asks, what will drive the best behaviour? Perfectionism asks, what if I'm not perfect? Or they find out I don't know what I'm talking about, that I'm an imposter. When you use AI to handle the routine cognitive work, you're not lowering your standards, you're raising them. You're setting the standard that says your brain is too valuable to spend on work that doesn't require unique strategic insight. Sometimes perfectionism is just another form of people pleasing, trying to be perfect so that no one can criticize you. But the leaders who create real impact aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who think strategically, adapt quickly, and focus their energy on what matters most. Here's what I want you to try this week. Identify one area that you're currently caught in the perfectionism trap. Maybe it's email crafting, presentation preparation, or report writing. For this one area, use AI to create your first draft. Then spend your perfectionist energy on strategic elements that only you can provide. Notice what happens to your thinking when you're not starting from a blank page. Notice how much mental energy you have left for strategic insights when you're not stuck in perfectionist paralysis. And pay attention to the results. I bet you'll discover what leaders like Maria discover, that your strategic thinking is far more valuable than your perfect preparation. As we wrap up today, remember your leadership edge isn't found in the try harder trap. It's found in thinking clearer. When you're an AI savvy leader who uses technology to escape the perfectionism trap, you're not taking shortcuts. You're taking the strategic path. You're not being less thorough, you're being more intentional about where you focus your thoroughness. In the next episode, we're diving into another trap that AI can help you escape, the mind reading trap that keeps you second guessing yourself instead of leading with confidence. Until then, my lovely, keep leading from within. Lead, communicate, and show up differently. Hey, hang on. Before you go, I have some powerful resources for you. If today's episode has you thinking about how AI can help you escape those try harder traps we've been exploring, I've got 2 resources that will take your leadership to the next level. The first is if you're ready to stop being the invisible leader who works twice as hard and gets half the recognition, grab my free guide, From Invisible to Influential, at sue-ann.com.au/invisible. This will show you exactly how to step into your leadership presence and get the visibility you deserve. And if you want to dive even deeper into becoming an AI-savvy leader who uses technology strategically rather than falling into the new try-harder traps it brings, join me in my free masterclass at sue-ann.com.au/masterclass. I'll walk you through the exact framework for using AI and amplify your leadership presence, not dilute it. Both these resources are completely free. They're designed to help you think, communicate, and show up differently. Don't wait for your organisation to offer these tools. Take charge of your leadership development today. That's sue-ann.com.au/invisible for the guide and sue-ann.com.au/masterclass for the masterclass. I'll see you there.